Welcome back to the fan pub. I'm Sean. I'm not joined by Al today. Al's off swanning it somewhere in Warwickshire. Good old Al. I've got no idea if anybody's going to join me live, but we're going to look at the fallout from the weekend's cuts from all 53 teams, from all 53 teams, from all teams who've cut down from their 50 to 53. I guess there's so many places you could start with these cuts, and obviously I don't know if anybody's going to join me. I don't even know if I'm going to get any messages. I have no idea. But the biggest question that I've been sent, the biggest one that everybody keeps asking about, is what's the biggest ramifications for this for fantasy? I think it's fairly straightforward, really. We'll start with probably the biggest cut and probably the biggest thing that happened to us as far as the podcast so far. If you go and look at our bold predictions, what you're going to see is, and thank you for joining us live. Thank you. If you have a question, please shoot it over. What you're going to find out is that if you've been watching the cuts, you'll notice that Kansas have added LeSean McCoy to their backfield and have paid him $4 million for the privilege, $3 million guaranteed, which is $900,000 more than Damian Williams is getting paid. Now, we warned you on this podcast before. The concerning part of this, of course, that what this would mean is that his value, as second round value as it was going then, we really were worried about him as a player. Now, this news really dampens the two of them. A lot of people ask the question, will it have an impact on Darwin Thompson? And I don't believe it does, because you're not paying that kind of premium for Darwin Thompson. You're not paying a premium. He's a late round flyer. I still believe he's the player to target, because I don't think Kansas have completely settled on what's going on. And this obviously means they haven't got the confidence in Damian Williams, and nor should you. I'd rather take a shot at Darwin Thompson and let's see how the chips fall as the season unfolds, really, is the way I would look at it. Because I don't trust LeSean McCoy. He looked like a back who was frankly going backwards, who was last year 3.1 yards per carry really doesn't inspire me. It's unimpressive. I don't think he's going to offer anything to Kansas. I appreciate there is some kind of relationship between him and Reed, and that's completely understandable why they're still maybe struck. But the reality is, he's a back where the wheels are simply, there's too much wear on the tyres and he's going the wrong direction. So avoid that part of it if you can. That's my first piece of advice, really, there. Obviously, on the offset of that, of course, with LeSean McCoy going across to Kansas, we have the fantastic news that supports the podcast, really, with Devin Singletary. And naturally, I'm chuffed absolutely over the moon with this, because my hope was that Devin Singletary would get some work a few weeks into the year if all went well, and if we were lucky, if we were fortunate enough, as I hoped we would see, then naturally what would happen is he'll be given a starting job in the Buffalo Bills. And I believe that's how it's going to play out. There are still some people who believe that Frank Gore may eat a lot into that, and T.Y. Yeldon might also impact it. But actually, we know from watching this chap for the past few years, we know from seeing the preseason, we understand the way that it's going over there in Buffalo. There's a fantastic opportunity for this chap to really take the full reins of the gig and run away with it this season. And I'm very excited to see what he can do. I'm just going to check, actually, see if there are any messages coming through, because I don't know how easy this is going to be to see. Nothing that I can see. I'm going to turn this slightly, but I don't know if actually it's worth it. I don't know if there are any messages coming through. So do apologise if it filters. Yeah, it's gone backwards. Sorry about that. Yeah, that's not going to help at all. I don't know if I'll be able to see any messages flashing through at all. It doesn't appear to show them, but we'll see if any do come through. Anyway, so let's pick up on some other news as and when it unfolds. Some news today about, obviously Demaryius Thomas. He didn't last particularly long up there in New England. He was playing against the thirds and fourths. They've cut him. And there's now talk that Denver may well pick up his option again. I think that's actually quite likely. I think he may well end up back in New England. The fact of the matter is he may latch on somewhere, but I really don't think he offers us a great deal of fantasy relevance. So don't put too much stock into him. I think we also have to look at Carlos Hyde. That's quite significant. And I'm kind of curious to see what people make of the Carlos Hyde news as well. Do you see that as as important? Do you think it has any major ramifications? I think it just kind of muddies the water a little bit, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm kind of curious to see where that actually goes to. But I guess that's, kind of, I guess that's part and parcel of it, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the things is that it might be quite tricky to actually work out what to do really with regards to him. But yeah, anyway, look, I'm just going to go and check a few of the messages, and I'm going to try and come back on in a minute and just check this out. It's really a test, this post, to see what happens, to be honest with you. I'm not sure whether the messages are coming through. It's going to be one of these things a bit... where would we be happy drafting Damian Williams? That just came through for a second. I can't see it now. This is all new to us, so we do apologise about this. This is a learning experience. I'm going to try something, so apologies for a moment. I'm going to see if that makes any difference. No, it doesn't make any difference. I do apologise. It's just we're trying to figure out, this is all new technology in terms of how we're going to use this. Oh, good, they're coming through. Yeah, okay, I haven't spoken about Tony Pollard yet. Yeah, I've got your messages coming through. Finally, it's actually working. I understand what's going on. Okay, so Damian Williams and Tony Pollard. Okay, great questions. Well, for me, Damian Williams now, really, to be perfectly honest with you, is a player I'm avoiding, to be perfectly honest with you, at all. I don't like his situation. I'd rather, as I say, I'd rather take the backup, to be perfectly honest with you. And that's my stance on this entirely. So I think that's a really muddy situation. If you already have shares of Damian Williams, which I've just not liked the situation for this guy this year. I just can't trust a guy, to be honest with you, who hasn't had... I hope the camera's good. It doesn't look the best, does it? May have to look at that. It looks a bit fuzzy. It could be the light as well. So apologies about that. There's not much I can do about it, but I do apologise. We'll get better at this as we understand the mechanisms going to be required to make this work. So when we look back over the tape, we can see if it's strong enough feed, what we'll need to do to improve this. Could be lighting. So apologies if it's not the strongest, but thank you for watching. Yeah, so if you've got shares of him already, maybe in redraft leagues or that sort of thing, or even in Dynasty Trick, you've got to try and cash in where you can, because I just think he hasn't had a strong enough body of work. That's my concern. 4 games last year is not a season. Previous history over the last few years doesn't show us any great metrics of how he's going to run. He hasn't done it at college level, so there's massive red flags here. Now, coming to Tony Pollard, we haven't been on the Tony Pollard really hype train at all, because I believe Zeke Elliott signs, and he signs tonight. I may be proved wrong. It may have already happened. We've got another message coming through. Can Pollard produce RB1 numbers with Zeke when Zeke returns? Let's have a little look at that. Let's see if that comes through. Right, good. Can Pollard produce RB1 numbers until Zeke returns? And what's his dynasty value when Zeke returns? There's no dynasty. He has minimal dynasty value when Zeke returns, to be perfectly honest with you. His only value is right now in the moment, and that's assuming he gets any playing time. The only chance he has any value in any format after this, if Zeke returns, is frankly, should Zeke go down. That's it. So that's the reality of the situation in regards to that. And I know it's a pretty scary prospect. In a live draft that we had not too long ago, this weekend in fact, Pollard went in the 5th round, which is you're paying for the fact that that Zeke misses times and that he's going to be massively relevant. I think what people have kind of forgotten about Pollard is he would be more regarded, in my view, as more a change of pace, third down back kind of guy. I just don't see him carrying a massive load. But I guess behind that Dallas line, anything would be possible if Zeke doesn't sign. And the longer he's obviously out, the more beneficial it is to Pollard. But I'm really not holding much value in that, to be honest, at this stage. What other things do you want to talk about? Please do shoot your messages over. This is all a bit new. I'm just seeing what's come up. You spoke about Tony Pollard. Yeah, we've had a quick chat about him. We've talked about Damian Williams. Yeah, and we've talked about that. Listen, guys, those that are watching, you've got the airway, really. So if there's things you want to talk about from the ramifications of the cuts, please do come on, jump in, and actually let's flesh it out. It's a wonderful opportunity, to be perfectly honest with you, to air out anything that you think is relevant from those cuts. I'm kind of curious to see what people make of it. We've seen a lot of small things, nothing major that massively scares me. I think the biggest news, as I say, the biggest thing for us is the Singletary news is the biggest news of the weekend so far. That's the way I view it so far and what that'll do. But there are other smaller things that have shaken out of the woodwork. But what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on that? And kind of what kind of questions would you like us to like look at here in this new format? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I'm kind of curious to see really what we will make of that. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm gonna have a quick swig of tea. Let's see if anybody other questions come through. I'm a little bit, if I'm honest, I think one of the things is that the kind of, oh, here we go. Do you think Josh Doxton will get a new team or is it over? Yeah, great question. Thank you very much for that. Let's have a little look at the name of that. Let's have a look. That's from Doug. Thank you, Doug, for the question. That's really appreciated. The question from Tony Pollard was from Dan. Thank you, Dan, for shouting it out. I know Dan is a big fan of Pollard and made quite a good prediction. And he is right, of course. Dan's spot on when he said about how powerful Pollard's opportunity would be without Zeke in. And that's absolutely true. And that's the reality of it, as long as Zeke is out. But if he signs, and that's the worry for anybody who's bought into Pollard, he literally has no value, really. He will have a cuffing value in Dynasty, slightly. I think that's the fairest thing to say in case Zeke goes down. I suppose if you got him, you might as well hold him. But that's it. And you wouldn't. I think it'd be very hard to trade on him. And the best person to trade with, of course, will always be the Ezekiel Elliott owner because he's the one that potentially in Dynasty is going to want to do something with you. Now, coming to the other question that we got through, it's kind of interesting the way that these questions come through. We were talking about Josh Doxton. I think his career effectively, for me, is over. But you never know. With veterans, there's always a chance they latch on somewhere. But I've really not seen a lot of fantasy stock in him, so I'm avoiding, to be perfectly honest with you. And unless you're an incredibly deep believer, I don't see what value he'd really have for you now. Do you believe in Kyler Murray as a potential fantasy superstar? I think the problem is we have to use the paradigm shift of Andrew Luck. If you haven't seen that video, go and have a look at the Andrew Luck video, okay? And we'll just see who sent the question over and we'll cover this. Sorry, I do apologise. I should do that first, really. The question was, again, by Dan. Thanks, Dan. You've got it. Has the sound gone, has it? Oh, let's see. So can anybody give us a thumbs up if the sound's gone? Or is it back? We are going to have technical issues. Is the sound back? I hope it's back. Give us a thumbs up if the sound is back. See a thumbs up anywhere? Hope so. Sound is breaking up on mine. Okay, thank you, Doug. Okay, sound is good from Dan and breaking up on the other one. Okay, let's try changing this in a little. Sounds okay on mine. Thank you, Robert. It's good to have Robert here. Robert's all the way from over in the old country, Ireland. Lovely to have you here, Robert. Thank you very much for coming on board, buddy. Really appreciate that, guys. Thank you. I know this isn't easy. It's not an easy medium, but to tell you what, it really helps us having people come on and chat some fantasy football too. Let's come back to the question on Kyler Murray, and we'll look at some of the other questions coming through. Kyler Murray, it's the Andrew Luck paradigm shift. What we have to do is we have to put ourselves in the mindset of the player. Now, he's potentially a great talent. He reminds me an awful lot of Doug Flutie. And there's some news just coming through. Breaking news, Chargers no longer in negotiating with Melvin Gordon. That's just come through right now. So they're no longer negotiating with him. So it now requires a team to come in and make that move. That's going to be very interesting. Something to watch over the next few days. Anyway, Kyler Murray. So he's a great talent. I like him. He reminds me an awful lot of Doug Flutie. If you haven't seen Doug Flutie, it's worth watching the tape. Similar size, similar mechanics, similar personality, a lot of ability to run, maneuver, change the pocket, change direction of play. That's all exciting. The problem is, in the modern NFL, you better protect a quarterback like this because in his first year in a team like this, which, let's be honest, hasn't been good. I mean, it's been pretty poor. We saw that last year. I mean, if we look at what was happening there to the running game, we only have to look at that and realise just how poor that is and just how weak it is and how difficult it was to run behind that offensive line. That worries me massively. And a player like him could end up getting 30, 35, 40 sacks this year. Do you really want to do that to your Superman, your trigger man, your everything, your franchise? No. So this worries me. I think the impact of him, there's going to be moments this year we're going to go wow to him. and we're going to see a lot of wonderful opportunities of plays and stuff that will take our breath away, frankly. But you're going to have to watch this space, because these players can get destroyed behind terrible lines, and we have to really think in the Andrew Luck mindset from this point on. I'm not saying there's any red flags at this stage with this guy, but we don't want to see him get battered. And they better make sure they start building a team properly around him, rather than throwing him in, which they're going to do, right in the deep end. And that massively concerns me now when I start thinking in terms of fantasy. I think this year, no problem. But next year, I'll be looking at this very carefully. How much battering did this player take this year? What kind of condition did he come out of it? That will make big decisions to how I think, no matter what kind of year he has. So that's the first thing. Let's have a look at some questions coming through. They don't seem to show up on my screen for a while, so I do apologise. It's refreshed. The sound is good. What do I think of Malcolm Brown as Gurley's backup? That's a great... Thank you, Robert. Yeah, thanks for the question. You know my stance on this, but thank you very much for sending it through. Yeah, I'm not. I believe it's Darrell Henderson's job, actually, not Malcolm Brown's. Now, don't get me wrong. I was asked this question, strangely, Robert, by my son, and I'm a Rams fan, as you know, hence the hat. And I think what it is what people kind of miss is, I'm not saying that Darrell Henderson is a 3-down potential back that's just going to take over the job. Actually, no. I think Malcolm Brown gets used for stretches, but Darrell Henderson is the guy that you want to use in that kind of Kamara package situation. That's how you want to use him, and that's what the Rams will want to do. Put in the RPO plays, make the most of it, enjoy that situation, and that's what they'll try and do should anything happen to Gurley. Now, it isn't if, but if you listen to the timeline, and I know you saw us on Saturday, you saw the reason we say it's in the bowl prediction video about what we make of Gurley and why he's the number one bust on our list. Now, we predicted Singletary. Now, that has come true to a degree. We haven't seen him produce, but our point was we're looking for stars who could come onto the field and become a 3-down back. That's what this guy could be. If I'm right with Gurley, and I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right with Gurley, because the timeline is there to be seen, then a guy like this is going to likely come in and really have an opportunity to do something special behind what is a fantastic line, great defense and everything else. So be prepared. Now, Malcolm Brown may still have a role, and there will be some value there, but it's this kid you've got to watch. Right, let's see some of the questions coming in. Please don't be afraid to shoot them in. That's the whole point of tonight. It is a thing. Darwin Thompson, the Alvin Kamara this year. Barry, that's a really good point. Possibly. I mean, that's a fantastic shout. It is possible, because Kansas offense. Andy Reid does what he does. He's fantastic at it. They produce great teams. I mean, it could be, that it is Damian Williams' job, and LeSean McCoy's wheels have fallen off, and maybe he runs away with it and shows what a great back he is. And we'll take our hat off to him and re-look at him next year. But I just think the flags are there. So this kid absolutely could be that kind of player that comes out of nowhere that does something very special for this year. Let's have a little look. Seems like the situation is like the Saints with Adrian Peterson compared to Shady. I suppose it is, yeah. Shady helps the durability of the backs and help the backs more being in the NFL. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's a fair point. The experience of the player will help the players around him. He's been given $3 million guaranteed. They're going to use him in some capacity or another, LeSean McCoy. So that's a very good shout. Let's have a look at what we got underneath here for questions. There's quite a few bits coming in. Doug again. Is Justin Jackson going to be the man if Gordon holds out, or trade for someone? If so, who? No, I do not believe for 1 minute. That's a fantastic question, Doug. I don't believe for 1 minute that they'll actually trade. The Chargers will trade for a running back at this stage going into the year. They've already settled on Eckler and Justin Jackson. Now, myself and Al really do like Justin Jackson. We haven't really talked about him this year. We do really like him. It's kind of more, I suppose, if you're honest, the kind of the yin and yang players. Justin Jackson's a great kind of standard league kind of player. We do a steady job doing the grinding work, and Eckler can operate in the way he does. Now, Eckler had a role before, even when Gordon, got slightly injured last year and had the role all year anyway. He was a bit boom or bust, but he ended up with 136 in standard, about 155, 160-ish in the PPR league. I don't think any of that changes for Eckler. In fact, with Gordon out, you could give him a 10 or 20% uptick. But Justin Jackson is probably the biggest beneficiary of that, and so therefore has a role And I don't think people are talking about it enough. It's fantastic, actually, that we've been joined by 8 people live, and I really appreciate it. A lot of you people that won't know this, of course, if you have not been following the programme closely this year, myself and Al have been grinding out. We're going to go later into the season, and we are going to cover a programme an hour before the games start at 6 p.m. in the UK time. We'll confirm what that is, Eastern time and Pacific time, in another video. We will also be doing some follow-up videos over the next couple of days, which will break down the cuts, the impacts more closely and in a little bit more detail. But for tonight, it's really an opportunity for us to test this out, spitball a bit, chat to you, the audience, more closely, and have some fun with it, because that's what fantasy is all about, isn't it? Anyway, let's see what we've got coming in. Questions. So we've got Justin Jackson. I think we've covered that off. Anything else that's come through? Yeah, I think that's covered all those. Have we got any other questions I want to talk about? Yeah, I want to talk about another one, actually, if I may. I want to remind people of this. It's very important if you are drafting. It's pretty critical, actually. Another player that could have cracked the bold prediction list is a guy that sort of just fell outside it. You know, we put a couple of bonus ones out there because I felt so strongly about them as players to watch, and they were very important. But there was another guy that could have cracked this list. Now he's in our, you know, deep sleepers and flyers list and all that kind of list that we've been really open and honest about that all year long. But it's Raquel Armstead. I'm absolutely certain that Fournette breaks down this year, and I'm absolutely sure of it because 2 years in a row tells you that. It's the same with Devontae Freeman. 2 years in the NFL breakdowns generally leads to, you don't often see people bounce back a third year in a great year. It's pretty rare that happens. I think the only kind of player that I can remember who's had a couple of really difficult years and then bounced back is Keenan Allen, but he's had some really freakish injuries, but he's proved what an interesting, great player and durable player he really is, and how he's fought through some serious stuff to come back and play the way he has. So that's one guy I really would like to have a little think about. I've got a question through. Will David Montgomery get 20 plus touches a week, or will they ease him into the role action, and that's week 1? No, I don't. Well, you know me, Dan. I'm absolutely all in, chips all in generally on David Montgomery. With, you know, normally without hesitation, second round. I've only varied that for 1 or 2 drafts, that being one of them behind us, because, you know, I guess you've got to leave a little leeway for small errors if it all goes tragically wrong. But in my view, he's a 3-down back. The Bears know exactly what they're doing in this new system. People are going to be, as I predict, I believe you're looking at a top 5 back for next year. Let's be honest, he's a dynasty darling for next year. He's a player that will probably crack that top list. And people were looking at him and going, that's a guy you want to target, the same way they've looked at Christian McCaffrey this year. 20 touches, first game is a little bit optimistic, I think. I think what we'll see is a ramping up. This is against Green Bay, so there's every chance, actually, I'm thinking about it logically, actually. There's every chance, actually, that on the first game, on that Thursday night game, we actually see them grind it out, the Bears, so he may well get his share. But I think more 15 to 17 first game. But if we see 20 first game, a superstar is born here. I think he'll definitely show some things in the NFL because he's very, very, very. He's a 4-quarter beast of a player. I'm very excited to see him. I've got shares everywhere. I know you've got shares, Dan, and a few of us here on our Discord site. I've taken some shares where we can, so we're all excited. We've all got a piece of him somewhere, I think. So certainly a player I hope other people have cottoned on to. Let's see some of the other questions coming through. And they aren't that easy to see here, I'm afraid, but let's see what I've missed. Yeah, you are Armstead upside more than... Yes, I am. I can't pronounce his name, Barry, but all I'll say is Ozo Gubo. That's about as close as I'm going to get. Yeah, Armstead's the number 2. It's been listed as the number 2, actually, as of today. So Armstead is the man who's in the backup role. Okay, so just so it's absolutely crystal clear, they've announced that today. This is from Robert. Where do you rank Jared Goff in the QB list this season? 3 top wide receivers. Yeah, great question, Robert. Naturally, actually, he should rank very high because his first 8 games are very, very soft. So the truth is, he has a fantastic opportunity for the first weeks of your fantasy season. I haven't been his biggest fan personally. I have to take my Rams biases off. Perhaps I'm looking for more. I'm remembering the Kurt Warner days. I'm remembering players I've seen. And I have to sometimes get my fantasy head back on and realise, like I have pointed out to a few people, I mean, me now have talked about it, that this guy has a metrics, has an ability, frankly, to, for want of a better word, have a great start to his season. The second half of the season is a little bit more difficult, and that's where you've got to use that streaming side of your skill set as an owner of a fantasy team. Get the most out of him the first half of the season, and then maybe look to switch across to a different player who's going to have better matchups. There are a few candidates that seem to work quite well in this, but it depends on what your risk and reward is like. So it's certainly a good player to target for sure. But it's first half of the season, not second half, and then we'll see how he does. Which Texans RB should we target, Hyde or Duke Johnson? Right, thank you for covering that. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, obviously with the news of Carlos Hyde going there, it's going to put the value of Duke Johnson down quite significantly. I think if we're honest, right, and we've really looked at this quite carefully here on the Fan Pub, we never saw Duke Johnson as anything more than a three down back. That's really what his role has always been, really. So we never thought for one minute he was going to carry the load when Lamar Miller went down. He wasn't brought in there to do that. So it's not really a huge surprise that Carlos Hyde's gone in there. I think this actually should elevate Carlos Hyde's value significantly. I think we'd have to, we should really, in hindsight, give him at least the same kind of ability as Lamar Miller on a year-by-year basis, which is roughly about 160 fantasy points in standard league scoring. So Carlos Hyde has that potential now. We might have to temper our enthusiasm by 20 or so points when it's all said and done at the end of the year. But this is a Texans offense. It is pretty high octane. There's a lot to like about it. So yeah, shares of this are useful. I think Duke Johnson will take away some of the work from Carlos Hyde and vice versa. But there is a value to both these players, depending on the league format and size, particularly 14 and 16-man size. These guys could have some sneaky good value, and the longer the season goes along, perhaps really good value. So certainly something to watch. Let's have a look at some other questions coming in. It's a shame they don't pop up by this side of me, but there you go. Who do you tip to win the Super Bowl? And that's from Drew. Thank you, Drew. I don't know if you're a first-time watcher, but thanks very much for that. Look, this isn't going to be particularly difficult for those that have been watching me over the time period. Sorry, it just sort of eased in and out for a second there, so apologies if it's faded for a moment. Yeah, I mean, you can't ever look past the Patriots. Sorry to say, it's just the way it is, isn't it? In the modern NFL, their division is generally pretty poor, and they just seem to, they've got the elements you're looking for. But at some point, the wheels must come off. Brady can't carry on forever. Our dear friend Belichick may lose the will to live. Who knows? But it has to change. The old guard has to change. So that would be the easy one to pick. The truth is, I want to see the Browns go really deep this year. I've been picking them since January, before the news of OBJ went there. They were my dark horse before the season started. But that's killed all that, because with OBJ going there, there's no real value in that anymore. But I do like them for at least making the playoffs. And I'll be excited to see them go quite deep. Whether they can win it all, that'll be pretty bold, I think. I think if Kansas can find that running game, that's another team we have to really consider that, were a step away from it last year. If they can find the elusive running game quality, and maybe it's Damian Williams, but I think it's not. Maybe they can go close. They've got the tools, they've got the team, they've got the coach. Everything's right for them, so we can see if they can make a run for it. We've got more questions coming through, and there's some interesting information. Really enjoying the questions. Thanks very much. Hey, this is from Kat. Hey, Kat, this is great because you've been a real good contributor to the show. Thank you, Kat. We had a lot of good questions from you. Really appreciate that. So let's have a look. Do you like the 14 team you and Al are in over 12 team leagues? Al got the day off. Yeah, well, Al has got the day off, actually. He's been very lazy, actually, Kat, to be perfectly honest with you. No, we're trying a few things out today. It's an opportunity to... we're not sure how well this is going to work using the medium we've got. We do apologise. It's an iPad I'm recording this off. So it may ease in and out. Hopefully it holds long enough that you can hear us and the feed isn't too bad. Yeah, I mean, I actually personally prefer 16-man live leagues over every format because it's the hardest test for anybody, including myself. It's a real test of character to find gems deep down, to try and find a way against really good drafters, to come out on top of the pack, and it's a real elusive quality. 12 and 14 teams, each time you step down 2 teams, you have more rounds to build a strong team, and then it's a question of finding the slightly better players, because everybody's got a good team or good depth, potentially, unless they've blown it, to win through. So I personally prefer that pack, but a lot of drafting leagues will use 10 and 12 league formats, which is great because the more knowledge you have, of course, that you can stack these players deep onto your bench, the Singletaries and these sort of Darwin Thompsons kind of players. If they shake out of the pack and you suddenly find that elusive third, 3-down running back or somebody that's going to come out of nowhere, that can definitely put you over the edge, and you can definitely start bossing some leagues. So it's a great question. Let's see what else we've got coming through. So thank you, Pat. Sorry, Patty. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, so but I'll say Cat. It's easier, isn't it? Kenny Stills, now good fantasy value in Houston. Consider the injury history of Fuller. Oh, good question. Cootie, this is again from Dan. There could be their top receiver. Oh, God, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, Will Fuller's great until he's injured. Will Fuller's brilliant in standard because of the touchdowns upside that he has. It's almost won a game. But he just never stays off the injury report for too long. Same with Cootie. I mean, I like Cootie too, but again, both of these are beginning to look a little bit like, which type of glass do you prefer? Very brittle glass or broken glass? I mean, honestly, that's really bad. Kenny Stills is a best ball darling. I mean, this going there, I mean, I wish I had him loaded onto a couple of best ball teams. I haven't got him. I think he'd be fantastic there. So that's a great question. So yeah, he's got a great chance this year to do something more than his numbers, that's for sure. And I haven't got enough shares of him. Peyton Barber. Do I think Peyton Barber carry the load throughout the season from Barry? Oh yeah, absolutely, Barry. I mean, I think the truth is that I think Peyton Barber can carry the load for our dear friends over there, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because the other chap, Rojo, I mean, he's becoming a clown, isn't he? I mean, we're all looking at him now, and he's almost getting that aura about him. He hasn't done much in the preseason. Again, he's not picking up the blocker. They're already saying he's behind. I mean, this is looking like a very quick entry into the NFL and exit, isn't it? He's had 2 years now, and this year he'll get a couple of course, he'll get opportunities because of the stock value they put in him. But the truth is he done? I think he may well be. I think Peyton Barber is the clever pick. Funny enough, I've just had a draft, and strangely enough, just a few minutes before coming online, and I don't really normally take shares of Peyton Barber, but he was just sitting there, and I thought I have to do it because I needed more running backs for this particular team. It was a smaller league, a 12-teamer actually, and I thought, why not? Fell at the right point of the draft, and I'm not exactly excited about it, but it's fantasy, and you are looking for every edge you can find, and at every point of every round, as Al will always say, there's a value, and you go after that value as much as you can. So let's see what else we've got coming through. Keep your questions coming. Which receiver do you prefer at the Rams? Oh, wow, that's a great... Thank you very much, Elliot. That's an absolutely brilliant question. Thanks for giving that one. I love that question. Yeah, I mean, look, until his injury, Cooper Kupp was fantastic, but he is coming back from an injury. I think we have to use the report that the doctors... that I tend to follow a lot of very, very good analysts about fantasy doctor advice. I think they're very important when you're talking about fantasy players and the recoveries and players that are coming back from injuries, serious injuries. These are very important people to monitor. The Fantasy Doctors is a great channel. I hope we can get them on at some point in the future to interview them. I know myself and I would like to do that. Maybe we'll be able to. And they're brilliant to have as a resource, frankly. And Cooper Kupp, his injury, their thing is that they say that the big thing they always bring up, which I think is fair, is the chance of something coming back, the chance of that injury reoccurring. And the Fantasy Doctors are fairly clear that Kupp, it's the first few weeks back are critical when he's in full contact mode. If he can get through those first 2 or 3 weeks, I think over not necessarily the first few games, I don't think he shakes out as the number one. But I think if we can get through the first 4 and we're not looking, and he's looking better each time, even a little bit better and a little bit more of the old self, fantastic. There's your number one. But if there's any form of kind of, problems, and it's Robert Woods still, I'm never going to underestimate this guy because he just keeps producing. Every time I've doubted him, he's my biggest regret of last year. Of all the players we analysed, I got him wrong. All of them. Biggest one. And I will not underestimate him again. So he has every chance to shake out as the number one wide receiver in the Rams, but it's a blimmin' good offense for a wide receiver, a lot of yards and touchdowns to go around, and I expect that to stay the same this year, even with the troubling news about Gurley, frankly. So great question. Thank you very much for that question. That was brilliant. So well done. Let's see what else we've got. We will continue on if people still want it to for a full hour. I'll keep an eye on that. And please keep shooting your questions in. That would be much appreciated. I'm just going to bring up a couple of questions. Oh, I got one come back through. Do you have any surprise defenses that are off the refer that you would refer? I think that is. Thanks. Sorry, very difficult to read it. Unfortunately, again, being an iPad, I do apologise. You have to catch it before it disappears off the screen. So, any sneaky defenses? I think truthfully. The thing is with defenses, every year, if you're honest, I mean, this is something we're going to cover off in our draft guide next year in great detail, actually. And it's going to be the first time myself and Al do that. We've never really talked about it really here, but we're going to do one next year. We'll let you know more about that next year. But we will talk about defenses really there in great detail about the problem of trying to pick them, because every year it is really hard to repeat. So it will be hard for the Bears to repeat. But they do look the pick of the crop. But this year, I kind of feel, for me, I think you can't go far wrong with teams like, can Jacksonville recover the form of 2 years ago? That looks pretty good. Can Houston Texans, maybe they can with the news of things that have changed today, and all right, they got rid of Clowney, maybe they can go on and actually surprise people, surprisingly do really well, more than people think. Could Cleveland be a good defense for this year? These kind of things could be quite sneaky. And you maybe just want to use those week 1 or 2 matchups to your advantage. I much prefer... I like it when in standards you've got one really good defense that you're happy with, but often it's really weird how often the defense you think is going to do well doesn't, and somebody shakes out of the pack. So be really quick on that waiver wire. Or if you're lucky to have a whack budget to sneak in and get one, because that can be all the difference in fantasy, particularly in some of those standard leagues. So hopefully that helps a little bit. It's the only way I can really describe it. Let's have a look at what other things. What's your favourite sleeper now? From Simon. Well, that's a nice question, actually. If you've been watching the show, you've probably seen a lot of our sleepers. You probably know them actually greatly. I've mentioned Raquel Armstead. He's another one to keep on your radar. The dial, getting ready to dial in. Me and Al. We do like Ito Smith's opportunities to have a chance there. It is a bit more complicated than Atlanta, but somebody's got to shake out the pack, because we don't think Devontae Freeman stays healthy all year. You're always looking primarily at the running backs to come in over the wide receivers. And I have to say as well, good news on that as well, which is interesting tonight. I don't know if you know this, but it looks like N'Keal Harry of New England will go on the IR. Now, it will probably be only for the first 6 games, we think, me and Al. And then he's eligible to return. But it is pretty breaking news. And it's pretty exciting, actually, in a way. I've got him in a few leagues I've taken him. I'm a bit disappointed I'm not going to be able to see his best, but in one of our predictions, we're talking about him over the 2 years in Dynasty. That's where we really want to see what he can do. We think this year he's going to show some splashes, and then he's going to break out the following year. But it's really hard to find wide receivers, particularly in this class and particularly where they landed. So a lot of the focus for this year has really been on the running backs. You pretty much know everybody that we know now, that we've kind of seen coming in. So I hope some of those have helped. If you've got any doubt, have a look at our deep sleeper list there. Everybody that we can think of that we feel is a fair shout, a different way of looking at things, is in that report. So I hope you've seen some of those videos, and I hope they've helped get you some of those bargain players, and you capitalised on the Singletary news. That's the first one, and it's the first bold prediction, really. It has hit, because no matter what anybody tells you, you see, he wasn't even expected to start the year. I mean, imagine what people are going to make of it if I'm right with what people are going to think of this podcast. If I'm right about Gurley, that's going to make a big difference, isn't it? All right, anyway, let's have a look at some of your other questions coming in. Some loads of questions. I really appreciate these. Can't tell you how much it means to us here. Yeah, very good. A very good sneaky start. And that's Al. Yeah, thanks, Al. Al's actually commented. Thanks, Al. Nice to have your night off, isn't it? Oh, how'd you get the draft guide? Thanks for asking there, Kat. Well, it'll be next year. We'll be doing the draft guide. Myself and Al are going to be working at that on the off season, and we want to basically we were ready to roll for everything we've been thinking about our what you see behind, what you've seen in our podcast. Basically, I've been ready since January the 1st to talk rookies, and people out there like Dan will tell you. Dan and me, we shared a lot of conversations about what I thought of how the rookies would play out this year, and I think Dan would be the first to say it was a pretty accurate list. I mean, it's one thing for us to say it, but it's great to see other people saying, wow, you guys really nailed that. We feel very proud of that record. We're hoping we can come back and talk the positives of what we've done this year. And we'll look back in fairness as well and look at what didn't work and what we got wrong and learn from that and use everything that's new that happens in the NFL, because it is rapidly changing and Andrew Luck news is constantly changing. So as soon as we know more about next year, you'll be the first to know, but we are definitely, there's big plans ahead. Good question. Thank you. Let's see what else we've got. We've got, Dallas defense. It starts against the Giants, the Redskins, and the Dolphins. And Al raises a great point. Can't really beat that, really, Al. Yeah, I'll tip my hat to you, Dallas. There, fair point. Who is the back to come in Miami? Yeah, that's perfect, actually. Yeah, it really is Ballage. It is really, in my view, it's him. It's once again, it's not Drake. We don't like Kenyon Drake here. Sorry, we're probably the Kenyon Drake haters podcast, actually. I'm really sorry. Maybe he'll shake out a pack and prove us wrong, and I'll have to doff my hat to him next year like I did Robert Woods. But all the talk in the off-season, all the talk in the pre-season, all the talk from the team and everything else, at the very least, I'm not trusting him, and I think it's the other man. So that's how I think that's going to shake out. So he probably is pretty sneaky, but it is Miami. It's not a great team. I don't see... I mean, the thing that Singletary has going for him, actually, when you talk about sort of players and what they might be able to do, is that cold weather, when we get into sort of October, November and December time in Buffalo, when they're at home, it's going to be a huge advantage to a cutting machine. It's going to make a massive difference. And that's where, when you're playing Miami, I just don't see the same edges. So it'll be good. It'll be good in some ways. And if you get him late enough, it's a bargain. But people have kind of started overpaying the price for him as well. So I'm a little bit concerned about him. Anyway, let's see what other questions we've got. People are choosing names tonight, aren't they? Names I'm never going to be able to pronounce. So thanks for that. This is from Drew. Thanks, Drew. You know my problems over here. I have to be honest about this. I'm just going to say it openly. One of the problems I have is pronunciation, and this comes back to my personal dyslexia, and I apologise about that to the audience. But it really bugs me. I can never say the names the first time or third time or the fourth time. But the third string running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Ogunbowale, and that's about as close as I'm going to get. So apologies to the audience. You can have a laugh at my expense, but yeah, he does have a legitimate shot to take work away from the two. But in truthfulness, again, this is Tampa Bay. Can we trust any of them other than Peyton Barber? At least Peyton Barber has proved that he can handle a bit of a load. He can catch the ball, and he has those qualities going for him. Maybe that chap could shake out of the pack and do more of the first and second down work, maybe, and let Peyton Barber, who's not really a big guy, thrive in the role that he thrives in. That's possible, and that's a good late round fly. That's one of them you'd say for the last round of a draft have a shot at. I applaud those kind of picks a great deal. So thank you for that question. A great Al's part timer, yeah. Well, that's absolutely true. Right, so let's see if I've missed any questions on these. So I'm going to try and quickly flick through. Yeah, no, thank you for the question on the draft guide. Yeah, I've covered the Rams question. I've talked about Kenny Stills. Anything else coming through? Okay, so guys, we've got about 10 minutes left. Well, a little bit more maybe. But if you have any final questions, this is your opportunity to shoot them over. As I say, what we're going to try and do on this show is every Sunday night, an hour before the games play, we're going to try and put this kind of show on. An opportunity to ask fantasy questions, sit starts, anything really to do with the NFL. Even if you want to vent about your team, anything at all, it's your opportunity to come on, chat to us, tell us how you're feeling, tell us about anything that surprised you. It'll also be an opportunity. There's bound to be some amazing players that have come out of nowhere that have surprised us all. And that's what we're going to try and do. And we're going to try and take that all the way through the fantasy season. And then once there's no audience, that's that for this year. But I think that's a noble plan. We'll also do probably a program in the week, at least a video or two, about these kind of players that we think are worth picking up on the waiver wire. So myself and Al are currently thinking around what that's going to look like and how that's going to play out. And we're going to just keep doing what we're doing. We're back together tomorrow evening. We're doing a couple of drafts tomorrow, but we're still doing videos. And what we're also looking to do is to put another block of videos together before the season starts. So that's something that we are going to do. I'm just going to take this question that's come in. And I think this is from one of our regular people who's been putting comments on all over the place. Let's have a little look. Oh, I've just made myself bigger there. That was kind of scary. Can I get a hell yeah for the Devon Singletary. Oh yeah, you can get a hell yeah for the Devon Singletary, Adam. Well done. Oh, absolutely. I'm so pleased that you've capitalised on him, and we are delighted on the podcast to have landed the first of those predictions. And it's really nice to see so many people giving us that kind of positivity and feedback today, really, and yesterday. It was so nice how so many of our friends were really pleased in their leagues that they'd done well and that they got this late round steal and they were feeling like they got 3 and 4, even 5 running backs. I'm excited for them. It's nice to see people that are likely to go on and do really well. I've got him in a big American league and I'm really excited to have Devon Singletary. And I've scared them over there. I really have. That's really made them really take notice because I've got David Montgomery, Devon Singletary, Darrell Henderson, and they are petrified if this guy lands because what a team it will be. So I'm pleased for you, and I'm really delighted, and thank you very much for following the programme. And yeah, we really appreciate the comments, trust me. The only Simon's here. How do you like Shady's fit at the Chiefs? Well, we covered it actually, Simon, but for your benefit, because you're always late to everything. Simon was late to our live draft, but really good to have you on board, Simon, so thanks very much for being here. Yeah, we know that what you got now is a problem over there in the Chiefs because, let's be honest, they did not pay this man $4 million, $3 million guaranteed to just do nothing, right? He's paid more, $900,000 more than Damian Williams. There's your problem, okay? That's your first issue straight away. So that tells you Damian Williams has a real big issue coming. How big? No one knows. But I still believe it's Darwin Thompson is going to be the guy that will eventually shake out the pack between the three of them. And that would not surprise me, and his premium is a lot less. I'm sorry to say that because I know you've taken a share of him. I applaud the gutsiness of that. But if you had watched the podcast, Simon, you'd have known we'd have steered you clear and made you happy. Sorry about that, but maybe next year. Who knows? Maybe you'll follow us closely. Be nice if you did. As we're on Discord, we work together. We're trying to help you here. You could have taken all my secrets, but no, you didn't want to trust my judgment. What do I know? Think hot like, yeah. How do you like? Should we done that? Hell yeah, absolutely hell yeah. Well done. Thank you for the hell yes. That's good. I like the hell yes. I feel like a religious program. I just hope I don't convert too many people. Mark, hello Mark. Do you have any sleeper tight ends? Oh God, that's a great question right there. Sleeper tight ends, oh gee, because do you have any sleeper tight ends for this season? Well, in truthfulness, one thing we've done, and again this will be in the draft guide, is what we did is this is my part, Al's done some wonderful stuff actually, where he's broken some really detailed stuff down about the running backs and the schedules. You probably saw that. We would do one on the wide receivers, but we're going to save that stuff for next year for the draft guide. We're going to break down all the positions. But when we did the tight ends, when I sat back down earlier in the year, back in January, February time, I started running the numbers through, started with standard, then half point, then PPR. And we looked at what tight ends do. It was unbelievably bad. I mean, like over the last 5 years, how bad as a fantasy pool it's been. And I think this is, you always have every year 1, 2 or 3 really great tight ends that always do, really, when you got them on your team, okay, so that gives you an edge. I get that. But it depends on how high a premium you pay. One thing that we always forget is, depending on league size, massively depletes other areas, particularly if you're in a 14 or a 16-man league, which we're often in. That depletes your ability to pick up running backs and wide receivers. It just does because the stock goes. You look at that ball behind me, the blue tickets are all running backs. Our drafts over here in the UK are so fierce, 30-odd running backs are off the board easily inside the first 3-4 rounds. That's absolutely no shock to me. So tight ends take away your opportunity to take a running back or a wide receiver quite a lot. And they don't really give you any kind of premium back. So, it's really hard to find that quality. And if you look at tight ends last year, so many packed tight ends delivered 70 to 90 fantasy points in standard. That's just terrible. I mean, you'd be better off streaming one and just taking a gamble if it's going to be his big week. They're that bad. So, that's how I'm looking at them, really. And that's why we haven't put any on the bold prediction list, really. Other than Kittle. Now, but if you wanted my guy that was off the board, that, was on the edge of it, it's David Njoku for this year. I love him at Cleveland. I love his situation, and I love the player. And I just think if there was a player you had to tip who could come in from a deeper value point of view and maybe give you the top 3 numbers this year, or on the edge of it, it's him. If you want a slightly sneakier one, it's Delaney Walker, because we love Delaney Walker here on this podcast. A, because he's bloody consistent when he plays for tight ends. And even if I only get a few games out of him, that might be still about 10 times better than most pack tight ends, and I can still stream one. So that's the truth of the tight end situation. Let's have a look at your questions. We have got exactly 10 minutes left. I'm going to run the full hour. I'm going to give you the full hour of benefit. Sorry about that. Let's say what questions we've got coming in. Done the sleeper tight end. Can England win the Ashes? Thanks for the question. I'm not really a cricketer, to be honest with you. There's no point me talking about cricket because I only know, it's strange actually, I know exactly how to build a saddle in a cricket table. So that might surprise people, but I don't know anything about the actual who's going to do well at those kind of things. Can't be drafting the same as you. I need to protect the diamond, the H2 record score. Yes, Simon, yes. Simon does have a unique record score. I'm not going to pronounce it on this podcast. No chance. It will fall. It's going to go at some point. Whether it'll go this year or another year, well, that remains to be seen. But he is the people's champ over here. And that's a very kind phrase for him because he is really brilliant, actually, in his own way. We love him. What have we got here? Yeah, Al's quite kindly posted the tight end video list. So if you're in the chat feed and you want to have a look at that, then by all means do. We will pick up, if you don't have the questions here, we will go through. Al's posted a load of stuff, but I realised if I try to break that down into individual videos, which I may well do with Al tomorrow, it might be better that we break them down into smaller chunks, release those as little videos throughout the week so people can catch up on small chunks of the ramifications. But what this show is really for tonight is an opportunity for us to show you that we can go live, we can take your questions, and even though it's a bit of a process about finding out what will work and what won't work, hopefully it's worked. So that's the key, and we've certainly had a few of you with us, and that surprised me, and I'm really delighted to say it's a big and a very nice surprise, actually. So we've got about 8 minutes left, and it's going to be a solid 8 minutes. Are there any final questions, or I'm going to just go to the pool of questions I have that were sent in before I went live. So I've covered off most of them, but there's still a couple of burning questions. Do you, as the audience, have any final things you would like to ask? Now's the opportunity to send them in. I'll try and keep refreshing and see what comes through. I was asked a question actually about the New England wide receivers, because in the light of N'Keal Harry news, I'll come back. Simon's obviously posted something. I'll have a look at that in a second, Simon. In light of the news up there in New England, who are the wide receivers? It's a real, it's New England through and through, isn't it? I mean, you look at the running backs. I've got huge concerns over Sony Michel staying healthy all year. You look at the wide receivers, hardly any of them can stay healthy. Edelman will be the man while he stays upright. It's a real mess. Can Jacoby Myers, can he shake out the pack? I doubt it. I mean, you know, they may use anybody for a game or two. That's the way they operate. Bill ruins fantasy teams. That's all there is. New England don't care about us. That's all there is. And if you have to put a dart, it's another one actually for you. If you have to put a dart in another sleeper, we've said it before, it's a really weird thing that I found out. But the strange thing is, when you look at ADPs, it's really weird. You know, the year after, when you look at the ADPs, if a running back for New England is under 100, don't draft him. If he's beyond 100, draft him. And that's Damien Harris. So is that an omen for this year? I think it might be. I've taken a few shares. I'm curious to see how it works out for him. Will he have fantasy relevance down the key stretch of the year? We'll find out in due course. Let's see what else we've got. We've got some questions. Simon did throw one in. Sorry if this has been asked. No, it's no problem at all. Where do you think Melvin Gordon lands? As it's pretty clear to me now he will go. Wow, I'm so pleased that's a question we're going to potentially finish the show on. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, look, they pretty much said get out of it. That's pretty much what the Chargers said. We ain't paying you. You're on holdout. Good luck to you. We're going to run with the boys we've got. So if you've got shares of Eckler and you've got shares of Justin Jackson, you're about to capitalise. That's for sure. Melvin Gordon. And as I said earlier in the program, there's no doubt that they're not going to pick anybody else up now. The Chargers aren't going to pick anybody up, I don't think. I'll be very surprised if they do. There are a lot of teams. There are a lot of running back needy teams. I mean, we could be looking at another situation. I mean, you think, and look at the teams that could benefit from Melvin Gordon as a running back one. I mean, there are so many. I mean, we lucked out with guessing where Hyde would fall. I think that was a good guess, actually. I had that the other night at dinner. We were all chatting, weren't we, about it. But right now, I wouldn't even like to put a pin in it. I mean, I've heard people talking, even still the Texans again. I've heard people talk about Green Bay. I thought that was a bit strange. I thought they were pretty settled. But nothing is beyond the realms of possibility when it comes to a talent like this. But I think it's too late. You see, I think the problem now is who's going to come in this late now and make a big splash this close to the season. I don't know. I really don't know on that one. That is a really difficult one to answer because I think this could play out 101 different ways. But for sure, his holdout, protracted as it is now, we were right on the podcast, I think. I mean, I'd be shocked if he gets picked up at the moment. If a big injury comes, that will change everything, of course, as the season starts. That may well get someone battering down his door to sign him. But at this moment in time, I can see him holding out and maybe the whole season now. Because all this about he has to come back by week 10, all those things we've spoke about in this podcast, the Andrew Luck thing, the paradigm shift changes everything. We don't buy into that anymore here. We take nothing for granted. We assume nothing, that they have to come back. He may well think about the contract that comes after now and look to next year when teams have issues and capitalise because he hasn't been hurt on his stock value, which will still be quite immense. So that's how I feel about it. Great question. Just see what else has come through. Are the Dolphins tanking? Oh my God, what a question. Thank you, Elliot. Yeah, they are tanking. And actually, the worst thing and the funniest thing I saw actually today, I didn't have a chance to post this on our TFP site, our Discord site, was somebody actually had, the I saw this today, the Miami flag. And it had a tank coming out of it. It's the funniest thing, actually, rather than a dolphin. And I think that's actually true. I mean, given the recent moves that they've done, I mean, it would worry the fan base that that's exactly what they're doing. I mean, do they really seem to care? I mean, no. And people who bought season, I applaud the fans who put up with this for another year of misery and pain. They look a really bad team, and I mean, I think anybody that's playing Miami every single week. That's what's so sad for. It's so easy for New England at 2 wins. I mean, I know they're a bogey side to them, but surely not this year. Surely even they can't do it this year. Either they can't win one game. Surely, let's see what happens. Yeah, you had another question there. And which Dolphin receiver would you draft if you had to? God, had to. Oh my God, if I had to, I wouldn't want to. I even if I had no choice, if they made me, I'd rather pick a player that was dead than take a. None of them. I don't want anybody over there. No, I seriously just won't. I will not pick them. I just won't. They're all glass. They're brittle. They're rubbish. I can't do it to myself. They are. It's like the land that time forgot for wide receivers. It just won't happen. It's just not something I'm going to do, and I'm avoiding. Sorry, I'm avoiding the question. I'm not doing it. Right, we've got 2.5 minutes left, gentlemen and ladies. Oh, thanks, Simon. That's nice that you actually enjoyed the answers. I appreciate that. Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. Well, we try to be as fair as we can here. We do genuinely like to give away as much inside information as we can. And we don't mean anything spitefully for those that we draft against. Of course we don't. You prove us wrong as many times as we prove you wrong. And equally, we learn from each other all the time. And that's what good analytics is all about. That's what me and Al are all about. We like to try our best to get ahead of the curve. And we fall on our track record. That's what we look at. We look at what we've done the year before last year and then what we do this year. And frankly, if we're not doing a good job, then we're not happy. And that the proof is in the pudding of the results, isn't it? So let's have a little look at what else. There was another question I think came through here as we're running. If you had to pick one, who would you... Why are you pushing me for an answer? If you had to pick one, who would you take? What is so important about these Dolphin wide receivers? I mean, did anybody take one in our previous draft? No, I mean, it's like you have to go down so deep. Would you really think about it? I don't want to take Devontae Parker. I can't do it. I can't take Mr. Glass. He's like the reverse superhero with no ability and no brain cells. I'm just not doing it. I can't do it to myself. He's getting a fat paycheck for basically riding a plane. I'm not doing it. I just refuse to take a wide receiver. You'll notice this is another thing I think where we would be very different in the approach that we would have in generally our draft guides. If I don't believe in a player, I ain't even putting him in my draft guide, and I will actually explain that at the end of the draft guide why, and I will just not do it. For me, some players have no value, and he's certainly one of them. So let's see where we are here as we round up towards the finish line. Here we go. Pick one in the draft, not on the Dolphin. All right, pick one. Pick one in the draft, not on the Dolphin. What? Pick anybody. Pick any wide receiver. Uh, well, no, there's no one there actually. There's nobody I would pick from them. There just isn't, and it is in my book the worst team for this year for sure. One of the worst teams. So no, I can't pick anybody there. There just isn't anybody. There's just no value for me. I can't see anything. I'm just going to go elsewhere and look for those kind of players. Parker at best. There you go. And that's begrudgingly. It's like the Corey Davis of Miami. Parker, purely because he's so desperate. No, I don't like any of them. We've got a final thing here. Let me see what we've got. Let's see. Who would you take first overall? Oh, sorry, my apologies. Thanks, Simon, for clarifying my stupidity. Who would I take first overall? Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Well, thank you. Yes, I've got it now, Al. Thank you. Yes, you've got to understand something here. Apologies. First of all, we're British. We have to apologise for that. That means we're slightly behind you. Secondly, we have to look at a small screen. I think you're missing the point. It's not simple. I've got to read that and then try and pick up the information and relay it. So I've got your question. My number one for this year overall is Alvin Kamara. He's the player that I believe in all formats is going to be the player that ends up being the guy that wins, if you like, the overall title for fantasy leader for this year. I think Zeke could, if he plays the whole 16 games, it's awfully close. I think if you were standard, it's Zeke, PPR, half point PPR, I'd probably err on the side of Alvin Kamara, but it's awfully close because Ezekiel Elliott's catching is getting better and he got a lot of balls. And, but if I had to pick one, and I've said this from day one this year, I've got to stick with my heart, it's Alvin Kamara for this year is my strongest belief. But there is a guy who has the capability, if he plays the 16 games, to do something unique for this year, if he's hungry enough, and I believe he is. It's Ezekiel Elliott. Could he get 2,000 rushing yards after it's all said and done? If he plays the 16 games, is he possible of that? Because I think he could. I think he's one of those rare talents that might. Alvin Kamara obviously has a rushing element and a receiving element to his game, which gives him those fantasy relevant points, plus his ability to get to the end zone, which makes him unique. But Zeke has something special too, so it's awfully close between the two, and they are my 1-2. I would personally have Saquon Barkley 3, then C-Mac 4 is how I would have the board as of today. That's how I would do it. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, unless there is any final questions, I will keep talking, of course, but let's just see. Wow, Sniper's in. What's up? Hello. Well, we've got to keep talking as Sniper's a regular to our programme show. Hello, Sniper. We were going to end it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to go on for another 5 minutes for you, at least. You got an opportunity, Sniper. If you've got any questions, fantasy-wise, we've been going for about an hour. Thank you for all those questions from everybody who's contributed tonight. Elliot, Pat, the boys from the Discord site, thank you very much. Simon, really appreciated. What have we got here then? Oh, hello. Sorry, I might have just... Could you repeat your question? Let's see. Sorry, Simon, I might have accidentally removed your question before I got a chance to read it. Could you repost it, please? I'm so sorry. It flashed up a button, I pressed it, and it went. So I didn't get a chance to read your question. So I'm very, very sorry about that. Would you be kind enough to repost? Thank you. And I'll try and pick up on your question there. And Sniper, you've got an opportunity here. It's good to have you on board. Been a brilliant regular watcher of the channel over the last couple of years. Big shout out to you, because we really do appreciate the people who regularly comment on our videos. We try very hard, myself and Al. This is not our full-time job. In fact, actually, nobody knows what Al's full-time job is. He's that good. He has so many jobs. But we are looking to be more involved this year. I've said, and this is for Sniper's benefit, we're going to do a little show an hour before every game at 6 p.m. here in the UK. I'll have to figure out what time that is Eastern side. I think it's about 1 o'clock, something like that, 1 o'clock. And we are massively looking forward to answering your fantasy questions. Oh, thanks very much. Really appreciate that, Sniper. Thank you. Yeah, we love you guys. We love all the people that have regularly commented on the videos. And we've got another question in here, actually. The full-time job is probably recovering working with me. Is that what you're saying? Recovering from his 0-5 start to the season. Yes, that's very good. Yeah, well, Simon is well known for battering a few people every now and again. But yeah, he's had his fair share of bad starts, haven't you? Yeah, so we really appreciate that. Thank you, Sniper. How does Shady affect Darwin? Oh, well, good. Well, look, we've had it in the. I'm not going to be afraid to answer it for you because you're such a regular commentator for us. We apologise for those that already know the answer to this question. I'm going to cover it again for our commentator because Sniper is so good and so regular on the show, and it's just great to spend a couple of minutes chatting to him, and we will continue on a few minutes because of him. But yeah, I don't think Thompson's value is affected at all. I think it's the two guys' problem. I think it's to do with Damien Williams and LaShawn McCoy. Initially, those two is going to affect each other quite a lot. They did not pay LaShawn McCoy $4 million, $3 million guaranteed. That's $900,000 more than Damien Williams to do nothing but be a mentor. That's not the case. So they're going to try and mix and match. And they've already said, actually, if you read between the lines tonight, it's going to be a running back by committee. Now, that's great for Darwin Thompson because all he has to do is take his opportunities, and the hot hand may be the one that wins through. So I'd rather pay a lower premium for a player like him because people might start thinking he's got no value now. He's a great sniper bid at the end. Sorry to use your name, but it's perfect for that. So it's a great question. Let's see what else we've got. Simon is still bitter from when I beat him by a point to win the division. Oh yes, that's a very famous story in the TFP site where Al sniped away the division from Simon. And we could go on talking about our camaraderie for quite some time. So for those listening in and watching, that wouldn't really do you any favours for watching the show tonight. So we won't keep going. But I'm going to go for a few more minutes because Sniper's here, and there's no reason why we shouldn't do it because this is what the show's all about. It's about actually getting close to the people who make all the difference to us and make us want to produce videos and make us want to know more about this game that we love so much. And it's just been a thrill ride already this season. There's a question come in from our dear friends, so let's see what it is. In a league and grabbed Alshon Jeffrey, and let's see what that is. The thing with these that's difficult, unfortunately with the iPad, I do apologise, it is very quick for them to go off. I'm going to have to find out why. And to trade him, can't get sandwich for him. No, I mean, I think the problem is, right, I mean, I'm not a fan of Alshon Jeffrey, and it's not because the guy doesn't have value at all, but I think a lot of drafters were a little bit similar to myself, if I'm honest with you. They struggle, to be honest with you, to see the upside of the player now that I do as well. I mean, I think he's in a good situation, a great situation actually. They have a good schedule, but he starts the year again a bit banged up. You have reservations about how this is going to affect him. He's got a bit of a damaged hand. There's a few things that worry me a little bit before we start the season here. So I think this is what the problem you're going to face. Maybe if he has one or two good games, that's the time to pounce and strike and move him on. That's always the best way. That's the way Al would do it, to be honest with you. So let's see what final question we got. 15 people watching. I never thought for 1 minute we'd have more than a couple, so really appreciate it. Ahead of the curve. Well, I really appreciate that. Thank you, the guru. Thank you. Yeah, we like to. We like to try to be. We like to think. I'm really out of the box thinker. Really, I like to think about situations. I'm a great believer in. Last year I was levelled a few really weird comments from people, which not people here, but we had a couple of people that commented and said, it's guesswork. Well, not really. No, a lot of it comes down to hard, cold facts. You're trying to work out, analyse what might happen based on situation. We always believe opportunity trumps talent. Of course, talent's massively important, but opportunity can give you, because these players are none of them are bad. They are the 1%. You've got to remember, we're dealing with fractions to greatness, the very best ones. They're all great players that make the NFL, frankly, 53-man rosters. No matter what we think of them, even if we have a laugh at their expense, the truth is they're all great. And what you're trying to do is find that diamond in the rough, the analytics to find the special players that separate you from picking the obvious. And I think that's a skill. So, yeah, great point. Let's have a little look here then. Definitely Jeffrey has a few big games left in the tank. That's a fair point. Yeah, we really appreciate those comments. Anyway, look, it is nearly... Oh, we got another one. Very true, Guru. I know these guys personally, and we've held in-person drafts here in England. If anyone ever becomes a challenge and a great on football, if anyone new fancies a challenge, yeah, and a gamble. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely, yeah, we do. We welcome every. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, we do. We like to encourage everybody into the TFP site. Al will, I'm sure, upload links on these videos, like this video, like he does with every video. I'm sure you will find ways into playing against us. We're very open to play against. We love to support and help other people do well. It's something we're very passionate around. We like to be a little different. We don't want to regurgitate. We don't want to follow anybody's ADPs. I don't even follow anybody's ADP. I wrote my own draft book and my own ideas in my book before the start of the season. I've stuck with that throughout this season, and I've determined to follow that through to see whether I'm going to be proved right from January the 1st all the way through the season, or whether I'm going to be proved wrong. And then I'm going to know in myself what it is that I do and what I do badly and how to improve upon that. And Al's the same. He's very passionate. He brings a fabulous edge to it that you can't get unless you're like him. He's this kind of gambler that you just can't put a price on. The knowledge of understanding how to get milk the best out of the ADP. He's so good at it. Anyway, we've gone on for 70 minutes. I can't believe I've done that, actually. It's quite remarkable. We do have plans, actually. Just a final thing, actually, here while we're at the end of the video. I'm thinking of doing next year a 24-hour live stream. We'll have to break it into 6-hour chunks, actually, because we want to show people how passionate we are around fantasy. We're going to probably go through a whole board of 16 rounds, look at where the players will likely fall. We'll probably do all of that next year. We'll talk fantasy. We'll talk it openly and honestly with people as we get deeper into the season. There's a lot we've got plans for to do next year, but that is next year. And anyway, let's see what else has come through finally. Armstead, Pollard or Singleton, who would you rather have? Of course, but wherever you're from, if you can make any of them, they're very welcome. Yeah, absolutely. From all over the world, if you want to come to one of our live drafts, you'd be very welcome. We've got 3 at the moment, live drafts Simon is mentioning. We have one here, which is mine that I run, which is the one that's in Northampton. It's currently got a good waiting list. 5 players on the waiting list, 16 players playing. We have one in Southampton, 16-player live draft. There's one in Yorkshire. All of these are ongoing live drafts. If you're in the country, you want to hook up with us and see us in person, get onto the TFP site, start talking, get your name recognised, and you too could be a player like Jordan was at the Saturday weekend that come and spoke to us, locked horns with us, and drafted incredibly well, actually. So we're really looking forward to making some new friends from the hobby. And yeah, you too can try and beat Simon's special score. Who would I rather have out of Armstead, Pollard and Singletary? The answer is obvious there. I'm taking Singletary all day. I'm then taking Armstead, and Pollard would be a very poor man's third choice, not being horrible to anybody, but with the likelihood of Zeke signing, not guaranteed till it's in the books, his value disappears very quickly. Nothing more than a cuff. Anyway, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's been 72 minutes. It is wise to get off. We've put on a little show. We thank you very much for watching here from the UK, and we hope you've enjoyed riding along with us to this point this year. More content will come out over the next few days, and we welcome any further questions. And thank you very much for being there for us throughout this season. Your comments have made all the difference genuinely to myself and Al. You helped shape our thoughts and feelings, and we massively appreciate you guys watching with us tonight. And thank you very much. Please do not be frightened to put a thumbs up, to like the video, share the videos. Do not be afraid to tell your friends about this podcast. Do not be afraid to let people know. We are the biggest kept secret on the internet by none, and we know this. And that's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is people must really like the information. The bad thing is I feel we deserve to get out there a little bit more, and we can't do it without your help. And we're still going to help you further, because next year, as we develop the podcast, as we move forward with it, and we do the draft guide and we do other things, we are going to do special things for the people that ride along with us. We're going to have some special videos just for them. We're going to do some special things for people that are very close to us, who are close to this podcast, to get them the inside information as early as possible. Because a lot of things we've been talking about here, we would have been talking about with you very early in the year, to give you as much information as you can. Dynasty leagues, all sorts of rookie information that you to capitalise with now. So, we look forward to seeing. I'll just see if there's anything final, and then I'll wrap it up. But really appreciate you riding along with me. Thank you. Yeah, we would love to draft with you, and we will be, and we really appreciate you all being here. So thank you all for watching tonight. From me, it's a goodbye, and I'm now going to try and figure out how to switch off. Take care. See you all again from the Fan Pub.